And we're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome and thanks for joining us here today. My name is Olga. I'm the head of marketing at AppFollow, and I will be your host for today's session. Before we jump into the panel discussion itself and the speaker's introduction, let me go through some organizational moments. On your right side, you can see that there is a chat window. There are a few polls. They will be running through the webinar, so you can see one here now. Please don't hesitate to take part in them. It will help us to get to know you better. And we will try to adjust our answers and our insights to the answers that you are giving. Secondly, if there are any issues with the sound or video or anything, also let us know in this chat. My colleague Valeria will be monitoring it and will let me know if there is anything going wrong, and we will do our best to fix it. When you registered, there was a field with questions that you would like us to talk about today, so paid a lot of attention to it when going through the preparation. But if there are any questions that we didn't cover or any questions that come up along the line, so don't be shy, ask away. We will try to cover them as much as we will try to cover as many questions as we possibly can. So the session will last for about 40 minutes. At the end, we will have some time for questions and answers. If we don't answer something, don't get upset. I'm sure that if you reach out to our speakers personally, they will be able to share some insights, or we will also cover some questions in our next webinars. That's it from me. I'm gladly giving the stage to our speakers, who will introduce themselves and tell you a bit more about their experience in companies they work in. Anton, may I ask you to open the stage?
Sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Anton. I work as a customer support manager in a company called Yousician, basically leading our support team there. Well, maybe just a few words also about the company, because I guess not everyone knows what Yousician is. So that's basically an app that teaches you how to play musical instruments. It basically listens to you play the instrument and then gives you feedback on accuracy and timing. So it can actually detect if you're playing right or wrong. And besides Yousician, we also have another app called Guitar Tuner, which we also support. And this is actually like #1 guitar tuner app in the world. So we have a lot of users there as well. Yeah, I guess that's it in a nutshell. Excited to be here.
Thank you. Inna, may I pass the microphone to you? Inna, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, sure. Sorry, I didn't get it. Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Inna. I'm the head of support in Revolut. So I'm not sure like how many of you are from Europe. If you're from Europe, you should know about us. We are a fintech company. I joined 2.5 years ago. When my team was pretty small. It was like around 50 people back then in customer support. And right now my team is like more than 400 people. Out of them, not all, of course, like working as customer support agents. So we have like a lot of supporting positions as well there. Basically, I have been working in this customer experience area for a really long time, from my very first job when I was a teenager. So I would say this kind of career path, it was like a natural growth. So I know what it feels like to be a customer support agent. I know what it feels like to be a project manager in this area, program manager, as well as like leading this kind of huge operations. So I really hope that today I'll be able to share some best practices, things which worked and didn't work for me, so that you can apply them in your day-to-day life. And also from my background, so I have both financial backgrounds. So I studied economics, and I was working in the past in some of the banks in insurance. But before joining Revolut, I was working for 6 years in Google, where again, like I joined as the customer support representative, and then had my career grow into the program manager there. So hopefully it's going to be useful for you as well.
Wow, that's impressive experience. Thank you very much. And Vera, would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Right. Hi everyone. My name is Vera Rabkina. I'm head of rating reviews section in AppFollow. So basically, we're working to help customer support teams to help as many customers as they can. So we build a large amount of tools to facilitate customer support, optimize, boost efficiency, automate part that are worth automating, and building anything AppFollow can do for you to, get utmost from your customer support strategy.
Super, thank you very much. So yeah, I actually see that we have people from a lot of countries here. It's great that we have very international community. So yeah, there was this poll that I mentioned before. I can see that there are most of the people here have okay, no, it's moving now. Yeah, but you can see that it's actually equally spread between, all the options. So going to our first question, guys, would you mind sharing how your customer support teams are organized? How do you structure them? And I know, Ina, you mentioned a bit already, so maybe you can give us a bit more details on that.
Sure. So if you look at our structure, it's actually going to be very complex. As I mentioned, it doesn't consist only of customer support agents. So in general, we have, first of all, like different products which we have within the same company. For example, like Revolut, most people know us as like the product for individuals. So this is like what we call retail, Revolut for retail. And we have one team fully dedicated to supporting those customers using that product. Our approach is like very global. So despite the fact that we have people from dozens of different countries, we don't split teams by countries because we try in general to become as global as possible. So when we build the product, we try to make it universal. There can be some local specifics, but our main goal is like to make sure that people get exactly the same experience disregarding like which location they are. That allows us not to have the split by the countries, which makes us a little bit like more universal in how we operate on a daily basis because anyone can support any customer. We provide support there in 11 different languages. Of course, English being the main one. So this is like one of the biggest parts like of my team. The next part is business support. So it's a B2B product, which we also offer to our customers who are actually companies. It has like very similar structure. Then we have the KYC support. That's like part of our business, which is related to onboarding the users. Then we have a technical support team. This is a second level support team, which helps like our agents in case of any technical issues or bugs. And also this is a team which is managing all the incidents in the company. We additionally have quality team, a dedicated team, which is just controlling the quality of all the agents who are supporting the users. We have complaints team. So there is like, as we work in financial industry, there is a requirement for every company, every business to have an official process for customers to file a complaint internally. So we have a team who is handling only complaints. Even though it can sound like it's a very stressful job to handle exclusively complaints, but actually they are getting consistently very great feedback from our customers, so you can actually still make it fun and rewarding. Then we also have a team which is focusing only on data analytics. So we have people who are fully dedicated just creating for us analysis reports, data scientists, creating different models for us to be more efficient. And as well as we have like some other smaller departments like which are related to planning and so on. So in general, the structure, it covers both like frontline support as well as like second line. Oh, and I forgot to mention like social media support as well. So it's also like stays with us.
That is massive. Yeah, the team is really, really big, and I think that I will be like, if you live in Europe, you know that some of the banks leave something like more to desire. So I really love that you guys came to Ireland and I can finally use some modern bank rather than what we have here. Anyway, thank you very much for sharing. Anton, how is it organized in Yousician?
So yeah, we are a much smaller team. We're actually just 6 people, like including myself. So I would say probably the structure is similar to what a lot of you guys are used to. So we have like 2 tiers. It's agents and specialists. And basically the funnel goes like from agent to specialist, and then if required to a manager. The team is more or less like versatile, so we don't split by specific knowledge or area. And we basically, currently the app is only in English, so we support is also English only. But well, we have people from different countries, so in case, you know, somebody writes us in Portuguese, for example, we have a team member who can reply in Portuguese, or for example, I could jump in if it's in Russian. But yeah, otherwise it's mostly it. And well, we have also like kind of like special team members that are owners for some specific things. Like for example, we have somebody dedicated more to like user reviews, somebody dedicated to help center maintenance, things like that. But yeah, that would be it basically.
Cool. Are you all spread, or are you all sit in the office? Well, I mean, now maybe most probably you are all at home, but in normal life.
Yeah. So we are actually like a fully remote team, and I would be the only one who sits or was sitting in the office. Yousician is in Helsinki, our headquarters is here, but the rest of the team is basically spread out. We have people in like Serbia, Portugal, Philippines, UK. So yeah, basically working remotely.
Nice. Yeah, we also work remotely, but I think that, well, now everyone works remotely. So,
everyone comes aboard to this remote train kind of.
Yeah. Because when I was going through the attendees list, I saw that there were also not only you know, customer support people, there were also a lot of marketing and product people, even some business owners, some C-level. Guys, would you mind sharing and you also said that you have a lot of, you know, different departments in your customer support teams, so people who are responsible for different things. Could you share how do you organize, you know, collaboration between either different teams or different departments, and how does it work for you? Vera, maybe you can start your experience.
Yeah. So generally, as we're building, you know, the tool for customer support people, right, we're studying a lot of patterns and talk to a lot of companies. And what we see from, you know, the way they see their mission is that there are like actually like 3 big missions the customer support team sees besides helping is, well, actually they're like the final quality assurance team, because, well, they're the first, well, after the, you know, the feature goes live or anything goes live, they're the first to see, well, these are bugs and there's a complaints about, I don't know, login or crashes or freezes. So generally they see this mission about tracking these bugs and handing them over to, you know, quality assurance team. So another mission is, well, and I think this is like really fascinating, is that they do is, you know, and they probably the only team that actually know the satisfaction level. So they do the satisfaction check because, well, I think this team is better than any other knows whether the customers are happy with the product being delivered or not. And when it is negative, they're the first to take this hit, or vice versa. When there's really nice release, so they are the first to know that, well, the customers are really happy and appreciate the work being done. And, well, it all comes again to another thing that is like release validation, because, well, with every release, there is a new stream of reviews because, well, mobile world is built this way. So it's asking more reviews after every release. It just because new changes, they kind of provoke users to give more feedback because something new happens, right? So I think this like 3 things. And what we see at AppFollow is that its reporting is important. So, and, you know, building these bridges, and we see the easiest way is to, you know, to do any kind of report. And we see that, well, I think the industry is now shaping a little bit differently, and now there's no standards there. So the actually we see how certain, you know, expectations are rising. So first thing is, of course, like for companies that do tagging, that use tagging system and the tag reviews, they hand over bugs of various kinds, or even like we see certain patterns when there's a certain issue and the bug has certain number, and they just tag all reviews just to come back and say this is fixed. Another pattern we see is all feature requests are marked and handed over to product managers, which I find really great as a product manager. And this is the system we also have here at AppFollow that our customer support is telling us. So these are feature requests. And this is like really insightful, because for product managers to get this information, you have to spend like thousands of hours, hundreds of hours to find those users, talk to them, systemize it. So, and with customer support, they talk to customers every day. This is invaluable. So we see that this is like really great. And we see like this report, you know, how release is, what is rating dynamics, are there any drop in, you know, reviews rating or total rating. This is also very valuable to know what customers are talking about, and are they happier or not happy, or more or less happier than they used to be. So we feel like, yeah, this is something that works really well, and building these bridges helps a lot.
Super. But that was the, I mean, you as a product manager, you can really say how, you know, from another side, how to collaborate with the customer support team. In Anton, maybe you can share like your internal collaboration and how it's built in your case.
Yeah, I can say from our side, like that was a very big part of our job. And this is like many people in customer support, they like sharing the feedback, more like, okay, get rid of our problems because we don't want to hear customers complaining. But actually, this is a very critical part for our operations, especially if your company is growing very fast. Because that was the challenge which I faced. So when I joined Revolut, we had like less than 1 million users. So in 2.5 years, we have like more than 11. And when the company is growing, of course, the amount of contacts are growing as well. And you will never be able to hire as many people with the same speed as the company is growing. Like it's literally not possible. Plus, it's not efficient. So for us, a very big focus was how to reduce the contact rate. And I'm proud to say that we reduced it by more than 70% since I joined. And that was done by purely cooperating with the product team. So we have, let's say, 3 different verticals how we do it. So the first one is related to the product launch. I actually forgot to mention that we have a dedicated team inside customer support department, which is related only to product launch. This is like 100% of their job. So what we do is whenever like any kind of product owner has any idea which they want to implement, they tell us upfront about this idea. And our job on this very initial stage is to give a feedback. Okay, have our customers requested this feature? How is it going to be treated and so on? So it's like a very light discussion. Then as soon as we have any kind of design or the flow, how it's going to be looking from the perspective of the application, we always review the flow. We always give a feedback from the user perspective, where exactly they can have confusion. Where they might misread the message on the screen, where they might have the problem. So basically, our main goal is to prevent users from having any kind of problems in the future, because we are directly communicating with customers on a daily basis, so we know where they can get stuck. Plus, it allows to have a fresh view, because when you are a product owner, you've been working with this product creation for a long time, it seems like super easy for you. It's like everyone's going to figure out. What we see in reality sometimes when people release the product, especially on the small application on the phone, which is like very limited size of screen, sometimes to make some action, you need to, to like swipe to the left, then scroll, then tap 3 times, then do something else. So all this kind of magic, which is for product owners, of course, like, well, it's obvious that you would do that, right? But for the users, not so much. So our goal is like to prevent such potential discrepancies. And then we work very closely. So after we provide all the feedback, we give a lot of the information, what has to be changed from the user side, what has to be changed from our internal tool side, so that you will be able to troubleshoot any kind of potential problems. Then we also review communication, which is being sent to users. Because we had cases when, for example, product was great, but the communication which was sent, it was a little bit misleading, and people had other kind of expectations, or it was not providing the answers to the typical questions. So we also review like that part, and the team is responsible. The main goal is like to decrease the amount of contacts. So we find the launch successful if you launch the product and no one contacts us. It means that people like it, they have no problems, they know how to use it. So this is like one vertical. The second one is when we have incidents or bugs or any kind of outages. So for that, we have, again, like a dedicated team. So whenever anything goes wrong, we have 24/7 monitoring. We used to have developers being like this kind of 24/7 mode as well. But what we found out is that sometimes, like if you're like monitoring the situation, but you're not specialist in this area, you would not be able to actually help because you work on the other part of the product. So we moved it for our side. So from our side, we are 24/7. We have all the dashboards showing like information about all the potential like smaller changes in our operations. Many times when, for example, like our partners have the outage, we know about it much earlier than they do. So in this case, we contact them and tell like, hey guys, like your systems are not working. So like you need to fix it. And basically this team is responsible for recognizing the outage as soon as possible, initiating the incident mode. So when we send communication to the customer, we put the banners on the chat to prevent the contact rate, as well as to chase all the product owners to make sure that it's fixed. And later on to run the analysis, like what exactly happened, how you can prevent it in the future. This is kind of like bug or outage management. And then the third one is when everything working as intended, like there's no launch, the product has been there for a while, but customers are still contacting us about it. Either don't quite like it, how it works, it's confusing, or like in general, their context. And this is the area where we gather a lot of the data and provide the feedback to customer experience team or directly to the product team saying, okay, we have like too many of the contacts coming from your area. How we also like do it in Revolut is for every product owner, besides having them nice KPIs to launch the product and have like X amount of users using this product on a daily basis, we also have what we call like business depth. It means like when you launch the process, the product change, how much problems did you cause to other teams? So in this case, if the product is driving too many of the contact rates, or if the product is driving too many of the negative customer satisfaction rating, it means that there's also a problem of this product owner. So in this case, it's the question of our corporations, how we can showcase to them what exactly they need to fix within their product so that the customers would be happier and would contact us less. So by working on this kind of all three areas, we were able like to decrease the contact rate dramatically. And I believe, of course, like there's always something to improve. But right now, I'm really happy with our cooperation we have, because we showed big value which we can bring to the teams. Initially, it was a struggle. They were not quite willing to communicate with us in advance. But after a few times when we were able to give them extremely useful feedback, and they said like, wow, we could have come to you like much earlier, because now we need to do everything which we were wasting time in the past. So basically that allowed us to show the value from our side, and now like we have this kind of cooperation long in advance before the customers see the actual product.
Wow, that is this is impressive. And do you collaborate anyhow with your success or marketing teams? Did you mention product teams, but any other teams you can?
Well, basically we have the like PR communications teams, so they are always involved for the product launches. In this case, they create the communication which will be sent to customers, and we from our side just like review it and point them to some confusion which might be there. I guess like an example can be when we launch a very popular product which is like called Metal. It's a subscription plan where you can get many different features, including the Metal card. But when we were communicating it, initially we just said like we're launching Metal, and many people thought that it's just like a Metal card, not the Metal plan. So it resulted like many confusions and so on. So that was like, again, like it doesn't mean that marketing did something wrong. They just didn't have experience knowing how customers read the communication. So right now we from our side also give them hints of what can be improved if there is anything needed. Plus, we work with them very closely in case we see some kind of incidents and so on. So we have the policy of like tone of voice. We want to make sure that when we communicate with users, we have the same style of communication on chat, through marketing emails, on our social media channels. So every communication which we are running, we actually run together with the copywriting to make sure that it's aligned with our overall tone of voice in the company.
Cool. Yeah, from marketing perspective, it's really interesting to see how your clients communicate and like keep the tone of voice and use their lingo to go back to them, because you can just come up with something in your head and then they will not understand you, or they will understand you wrongly. So yeah, it's super cool to know that you also you connect all the customer-facing teams. Anton, can you share it from your perspective, please?
Yeah. So for us, I would say like the big win was actually to when the support team joined product area. So before that, we were actually in company functions, and it was really terrible when it comes to either getting updates from the product team or then sharing the feedback with them. So I think one of the best decisions we've made is to actually join product. And we kind of got a seat at the adult table, and yeah, it's been working pretty well since then. So we know about all the things that go into product, and then we are able to share feedback with product managers, basically as soon as we get it. So that's been working pretty well for us.
That's cool. How often do you communicate it to your product teams, like any reports or issues that are happening or any feedback?
Yeah, so I mean, in case anything is urgent, then of course right away. Otherwise, we have like weekly meetings where I raise quite important issues, and then we have like quarterly kind of like reporting session when we just present on like all the user feedback that we've received throughout the quarter. And then product managers usually take it from there. Okay. Basically.
But if for example there is like a feature request, do you come back to the customers, or is it like a product manager who comes and just answers themselves?
Well, yeah, I mean, if it comes through support, then we usually reply to the user right away. And then we also use the tool called User Voice to collect all the feedback from the users. And, users can go there, they can vote for some of the suggestions, or they can suggest their own things. And then once the feature is implemented, we go there and we notify everyone who voted for that thing that it's actually out, so you can go try it out.
Oh, nice. Already kind of discussed that, and you guys shared that there are different types of user feedback that you can you gather different sources. As we are all are in mobile apps world here, let's talk a bit more about user reviews. It is a bit kind of indirect way to it's not really a customers like a support ticket. It's mostly like a public feedback, and it's not always on the service that you do. It's most of the times it can be like if on the app or some issues or something like this, and it's like a very as I said, it's a very public way to express user opinion. Anton, maybe you can also share with us how do you process this type of feedback in Yousician, and what do you pay attention to the most?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, like the main complication there is basically that it's more or less like a one-way feedback. So you can't, as with tickets, you can't really communicate back and forth, and you should be, really careful with what you say to the user, because everyone else can basically see that. Yeah, we've actually tried several ways of addressing app reviews from the early days when we just didn't have the capacity to reply, so it was almost non-existent, to replying to everything. And I think at the moment what works best with us is like replying to some of the reviews, mostly negative ones, 3 stars and less. And really trying to concentrate on those reviews where we can help the user right away. So if we can, if from the review we can already understand or at least get some idea of what the issue might be, we would reply to that. Because we felt that user kind of feels more involved if we already give some troubleshooting steps instead of just asking them to contact us. So that worked pretty well for us. But then in general, we also tackle the negative reviews, again, as a, one way of collecting the feedback. And then we share those, reports on tags with the product teams, so they know what people are reviewing, what are the main themes. So tagging actually works for us pretty well. And we've been experimenting recently with this new features like auto tags and auto replies, still on early stage, but I think it's a pretty cool thing. So yeah, checking it out currently.
Okay, thank you. Ina, can you share your your experience and how?
Yeah, I agree with Anton on the fact that those kind of feedbacks or reviews, they're like in this like one way direction information. So it's a challenge, like how to make sure that we keep the contact with the customers, because sometimes people use the public platforms to attract more attention to their problems. In this case, they actually want us to react on it. And sometimes customers like publish their feedback being as anonymized as possible, so that you never guess like who they are and how you can actually help them. From my experience, what I see, a lot of the people who are like rating us, let's say on the app stores, so like Trustpilot, etc., they're not quite rating the product itself, not the application, but rather than the service which they're receiving using this application. So if we have anyone mention that they had like a negative experience with our services, of course, like our social media team tries to get in touch with the person and identify who they are, as well as like to help them to protect their case like outside of this kind of public platform. Indeed, the challenge is like how to reply to the customers in a very nice ways, because like this is like what other customers are looking for. Because if you're going to have just like a bunch of negative reviews, or even like from time to time some negative reviews but no reaction from the company, that would be a sign like, okay, they don't care, right? Which is like very important for us to show that whatever happens, we are there, we want to listen, we want to react on this part. I would say for us, like a challenge part is because we are providing financial services, we do have customers who unfortunately were trying to use us not for the best intentions. So they were trying to commit some kind of criminal activity, and we have to log those users. Of course, in such cases, people are extremely unhappy, and they are like going publicly and comment in a very negative way that like, you stole my money, you blocked my account without any reason. And the challenge for us is, of course, like if we would be speaking like one-to-one with the person, we would tell them like, well, let's be honest. Like this is how you were using the account. In the case of public communication, we cannot reveal this data because it's personal data of the customer, right? So that's, I would say, like the biggest challenge for our social media team on how to react on the cases when those complaints are not quite justified, let's say. But still, for every single case which we have the report created, and we make the investigation, try to attach every single customer, every single feedback to a specific customer, and then to make an investigation of that, for example, chat which was happening. Did we do the maximum out of what we could? Can we learn from that? Many times, a lot of the times for the negative feedback, we actually come back to the customers. So the social media team sends us the request to the like frontline team saying like, okay, this customer complained this information, please get them in touch with them and finish the case or resolve the issue. So there always has to be like this kind of match in the loop.
Cool. Is your social team, does your social team also manage the app reviews?
Yes. So they manage all the like Apple Store, Android Store, Trustpilot feedback, as well as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram messages, etc.
Oh, that's a lot. Super. It's not always fair to app owners or like the app teams to see this kind of feedback that is not related directly to the product, but to some other actions that people talk about. But yeah, it's I hope that that people will be more reasonable when they leave this feedback. Vera, can you share like best practices that you've collected during your work?
Right. Yeah, first and foremost, I wanted to agree with you guys, and I think this is the trickiest part about mobile, and the main difference how mobile support differs from the classical understanding of support is that this is public. So in a classical understanding, the support main mission is to help as many customers as you can. But here, since it's public and it's on a public page, right? So it's a little bit different. You want to help everyone, but it's also a matter of your brand. And you want to keep your brand high because, well, the way the customer support works and operates affects not only the users who posted this reply, who posted this review, right, but also your future users, right? And this is like, I think, the main difference, and which makes it even more complex because, well, everyone sees that. And while getting back to strategies, I think anyway, it's always choosing the right strategy. It's always the matter of the capacity. And I think this is what Anton mentioned, that while you start as a small team and you can help do this part of job, and then as you're growing, you just try to cover. So before we get to like different strategies there are, I wanted to give you this idea that while you need to understand with the capacity you have, how many you can help. So I think the first idea, the first question you should ask yourself is, are you guys supporting all countries, or just focus like, okay, we just focus this quarter, we focus to make a difference in, for example, China, Japan, and Korea, or we just, at this moment, because we have this amount of capacity to a startup, we focus on English-speaking countries. And this is important because, well, you actually want to make an impact, right? Another question, I think, and this is what I see, like how and this is like really exciting because I see how the customer support is changing. Because I should say this pretty classical area, which has a very long, history of the way to work with, everything as a customer support, and mobile world is relatively new, right? So it's kind of interaction with this. I see how more technology is coming, right? And so we are building a lot of automation tools, and we see how, classical companies with a lot of history and understanding the way they did it, try to adopt these things. Like, for example, well, if you do auto-replies, right? So it's split into two, like all reviews are split into two types where humans win. So those like, variety of complex questions or complex situations, like you mentioned, with certain, really important things that no robot can do, or understanding like human emotion and like a wide range of the feedback. And another thing is like really common questions, or like quick routing to the right place. So this is like, I see how there are more companies adopting this automation auto-replies, because while it increases response rate, well, it kind of reduces response rate like more than twice. And we can see it from the cases from our customers who like actually want to help as many as they want, so they kind of split. So these are easy cases we auto-reply here, but we focus on the more complex, and then we can go more iterations with the users, right? And if to go to another part of the strategy, or our suggestion and what we see works, since it's also a public thing, is to look at featured reviews, because these are the reviews your users would see first on the page. And this is a power of brand, I think, if you have like top 3 reviews answered, no matter whether are positive or negative, because this impacts the conversion to install rate. So actually, this is about traffic and budget for, App Store optimization rate. Another thing which also highly recommend to look at is that if you guys have an updated review, which rating became worse, we suggest that you pay a lot of attention to it, because these are loyal customers which started getting angry about this. And this is something really, different from mobile world in comparison to other, classical understanding of customer support, because it's just one window, it's just one review, and they keep updating it. So by tracking these dynamics, you can see that while they're upset, and this is the point where customer support can kick in and change them back to being loyal customers, right? So, and again, yeah, we see like tagging them right, and then checking and going in, it works really well. So you do auto tagging and do this initial, the system let the robots do this initial sorting out, and then you handle all, subscription issues, or handle all feature requests in one way. It just streamlines the efficiency, because you keep there's like just one headspace. Or maybe this is the thing, like if you have a separate team for this is the reason why I have it. But if your capacity is like you answer to all reviews not depending on the theme, then it's better just to put on auto tags, let the robots filter them first for you, and when you open, just filter and then go through all the monetization issues, go through all the bugs, go through feature requests. It's just simply like boost your efficiency.
Yeah, there are a lot of kind of thoughts on pros and cons about using bots or like automated bots whichever platform you are responding, like where you're using to talk to your users. How do you guys, like, what do you think of the bots and automated replies? Can it kind of ruin your authenticity, or what's your experience? Do you use it? Any kind of insights if you can share?
Yeah, I can say from my side, we use the chatbot for the retail users. I guess like if you would ask any customer if they would prefer to speak with a live person versus the bot, they would definitely say live person, of course. But that's the reality that a lot of the questions which customers are coming from initially, they are pretty straightforward. They're frequently asked questions, basically. And our chatbot, like we have a name for her. Her name is Rita. So she's basically working as a link between our frequently asked questions and our help center and the customers. And as of now, she's answering more or less 25% of all the customers who are coming to us. We additionally track her satisfaction rate from her experience, and we also make sure that, for example, if customer spoke with Rita and rated her negatively, like 1, 2, or 3 stars out of 5, we give the customer possibility saying like, hey, maybe you actually want to speak with a live agent. So to make sure that they have this possibility to get to us in case if for some reason get stuck. But in general, like our bot is trained to recognize when actual support agents have to be included. Whenever it's a case which is like more urgent or critical, whenever it's a case which requires like human involvement by definition, or whenever customers started saying, no, like you're stupid, I don't like what you're telling me. So she's actually straight away saying like, okay, so I would like to transfer you to some of our live agents. Plus, many of our customers are already aware that if they can just like type live agent, they can go directly to us. And we have a pretty high percentage of customers going straight to our like real customer support world. What I find is that it's very, very beneficial for our operations. We had a few incidents when Rita was not working and we felt it immediately. So it's like really huge volumes. You would not be able to handle them efficiently unless you have like extremely overstaffed team. Plus, that tool is very, very useful when you have any kind of outages and spikes. So for example, if you have, like you would never be hiring customer support like for the outages, right? Because like you want to have exactly the amount of people which you need to have on a daily basis. After we've reduced our contact rate dramatically, we had this problem that usually we have like more or less like low volumes of incoming chats, but as soon as we have an outage, it grows like 10 times more. And it's not possible to staff your team that fast within like just like a couple of minutes. But our chatbot is actually helping us in the way that we immediately activate the specific issue with her. So she starts informing customers about the issue. So for example, usually if you would be coming to us saying, I don't know, my card got declined, Rita would tell to the user saying like, well, maybe your card is expired. Maybe that can be an issue. That can be an issue. Whenever we have an incident and we know that all the cards have been declined, she's not giving some kind of general suggestions which are relevant for customers outside of the incident. She gives them straight away information saying like, hey, we have an incident. Don't worry, we're working on it. Like, we'll let you know as soon as it's fixed. So chatbot is very useful not only for daily operations, but also for this kind of outages and incidents management, because otherwise, I can't imagine like to run the team like with such huge backlogs. As soon as we start like using chatbots specifically for incident management, now even if we have those customers coming to us, we also use chatbots still like to send mass messages and mass information to customers about when the issue is fixed. So if in the past we needed to work on the backlog maybe like for a week after the outage, right now it's just a question of a couple of hours. So I definitely recommend using chatbots for those, but you need to work a lot on also the tone of voice of a chatbot. It has to be more human. Sometimes we actually even see people leaving feedback about Rita thinking that she's a live person, which is maybe a success because people like don't even like recognize that she's a chatbot, even though like we have like a robot sign on her. But still, like you cannot just like launch the chatbot. You need to invest a lot of time just like on working it. And for that, we also have a dedicated team, which is like from product side.
Cool. Yeah, it does save a lot of time and like help you go through, you know, like repetitive reviews, or like from my side, from like a customer side, I do love to, you know, to kind of get my problem solved faster. But sometimes if I see that there like no bot doesn't answer it, and like, please, can you just pass me to the real person? So like I hate waiting for it. So if, you know, there was like a faster way to send me to an agent or to the support team, I would really appreciate that.
And I would say like we're actually a little bit biased, right? Because we all work in customer support, which means, for example, I wouldn't be writing to customer support team if I wouldn't troubleshoot the issue on my own. right? Because that's my profession. So I know how to troubleshoot any problems which I might be having. So usually when I need to contact the customer support, like of any other company, I already have done the troubleshooting. So already know that's a problem, that's a bug from your side. So in this case, exactly for me, like, okay, why would I speak with a bot, which I know that that's a bug? That's not a problem for me not finding the feature. So we also need to take that into consideration that we are a little bit biased here.
Yeah, well, I mean, you are, the perfect customer, so you would be like there, hey guys, this is a bug, you need to run, like, start this together.
Yeah, when I write to people in customer support, it's like, okay, this is the steps which I've done. This is not working, this is not working, so now go.
Nice. Anton, how does it work on your side? Do you have any kind of automated replies, or you mentioned tags already, but do you use anything like robots or bots?
Yeah, we're actually like super careful, at least for now, with those. I think for now we don't have like any auto, replies and things like that. We try to be a bit more intelligent for now, like using mostly like rule-based bots. So for example, if customer chooses some type of like specific type of issue, we would show them possible solution, but then still give them the chance to contact support. So they know right away that it's not human talking to them. They know that it's like an automated thing, and then they can basically decide if, well, this solves my issue, or no, I actually need to talk to a real person. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's definitely a very interesting area. And yeah, I'm excited to see how how it evolves, and maybe someday we will have somebody like written Revolut.
Yeah, I think that also for like smaller teams, I mean, it doesn't really matter the size of the team, but you cannot hire 50 more people to handle all reviews. So if you have like a bot or I don't know, some automation involved, you will be able to kind of deal and sort through all the reviews faster and like make your lives, let's say, easier.
Right.
It's also important not to just ignore like those customers who are treated by bot, because that's like what I've seen from some of the companies. They launch the bot just like deflects a lot of the context and sends automatic messages, and nothing is done later on. So it's also like very important that there's someone in customer support who is responsible to making the analysis, what was happening in the conversations with the bot, how the customers were reacting, what kind of problems the customers are coming from. Because even let's say if you have customers coming to a bot and bot replying to them all the time and fixing their issue, still there is an issue why they're coming even to the bot. So it's also like, it's not like a solution which you can just like launch and forget. Definitely there has to be a lot of the work on the bot side consistently.
Right. And in case you use an automation, I think it's important to use it hand in hand with tagging. So in case, for example, there's a subscription issue, you just reply the step around, like saying like, this is like, they tend to write a lot, like I think for certain type of subscription-based apps, because this is new, they have a lot of questions, and this is like typical questions. So have automated answer, and even if you like made variations, it doesn't have to sound like, first and foremost, yeah, I think like people are not that used to that. Technology is kicking in and like they will actually like expect the human contact. But I think this is something like changing here now and just accepting the technology rate. But it's important to use it hand in hand with analysis. So in case, for example, use auto-reply, use apply tag together with it, so that once a week you go check what of them were auto-replied, what are the tags, like the analysis. So we tend to have more, I don't know, subscription issues. So it's not, wasted, right? But I think what's important is that you help more, but you also like accept that, well, it changes. And this is fine. I think like an interesting case we had with our companies that were delivering food. So due to coronavirus and lockdown, they had huge spikes in the customer demand, and obviously their business wasn't ready. There was like a pretty small business, and they were like, "Wow, we're not coping. Like our app is not coping. Our support team was never ready for this." And they had like relatively big team, but they're like, this is like nobody was prepared for. So they kind of used auto-replies just to cover this huge mass of negative feedback, because generally like there are like 3 different issues which are absolutely the same. And they saw like the spike like slowing down, because when you have a spike, it's not like for this person, not time for personal touch. It's just a time to reply to and help as many customers as you can, because you don't really want your rating dynamics to be negative. And actually like those people need help. So I feel like we start like getting used to this idea that all this automation, be it auto-reply rule, a chatbot, is like another helper. It's like more of a, and I like thinking about it as a junior customer manager that does their thing, but they also need the supervision that you go and check what they actually did, like you did with anybody. And similar, as you mentioned, like you need to teach the chatbot, or you need to teach those rules because you see what they do and then you correct them, which is absolutely fine. And I think like the future of customer support is combining the technology on this mass level of answers that don't really need that much of human attention. And the art here is to build your strategy in the way that you set out the issues that really matters and you really need there, right, to focus there and help there with complex issues and do the analysis, right, rather than do this manual routine. And I think like everyone else is happy that routine is done by somebody else, and then you do the analysis, and then you get insights. And as you mentioned, like you're used as customer expert and like customer experience validation. So I really like this trend of customer support becoming something bigger, and they're becoming more of a customer expert and somebody in charge of customer experience, which I think a little bit different point of view, but much more rewarding.
True. Yeah, I think that we actually don't have that much time, and then there is a huge question that was the the second most popular question when people asked us. It is about KPIs, and very controversial. Everyone loves to hear how other teams understand that their strategies are working, and that agents perform well. So, Anton, do you mind sharing what kind of KPIs do you set for your team? How do you track them? What are the kind of insights you share?
Yeah, well, again, I think we use a pretty, traditional approach to, I like to the KPI metrics themselves, and then how to track them. So we have a team KPI report that is sent to everybody in the team every Monday. Basically shows how we performed the last week. And we track pretty standard KPIs like first reply time, full resolution time. Then we have like internal SLA policies. So not something that we actually promise to the customer, but something that, we strive to achieve ourselves. And then also customer satisfaction ratings. And yeah, when it comes to SLAs, we base them on reply time. So like first and next reply time, that's something that we track, and then of course the resolution time.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and just for the team members, we also have like especially with the agents, like bi-weekly catch-ups where we check more on the individual level, so the individual performance, and then see if something is a bit off, what's the reason there, and how I and the rest of the team can help that person to improve.
Cool. Yeah, I see. I ran a poll here, and 83% actually, weird calculation, but nevertheless, people track the most first response times. So I think this is like the most kind of important thing. And when you say that you have the automated kind of reports, do you also have them, based on the whatever issues were happening? If you, for example, if you had an outage, let's say, do you take it into account, and then after setting some new KPIs for the next month or next quarter, you take them into account?
Well, usually not so much. We just, when we receive the KPI report, we just remember like, well, last week we had an outage, so it was like plus 500 requests. So that's why, the numbers are a bit skewed. But yeah, when it comes to actually, tracking the types of issues, that's also something that we check on the weekly basis. So we in support actually also like tag or categorize each request. And then as the week goes, we can check like you know, how many requests were about requesting a feature, how many requests were about some bugs and things like that. So it's also pretty easy then to see the trends.
Cool. And do you care or like, do you pay attention to up rating? Is it one of your KPIs, not like maybe that you influence directly, but do you look at it from time to time?
Yeah, definitely. So for app ratings, we actually have also like weekly reports that get delivered to Slack. So we have this Slack integration. And of course, if something starts to look wrong, we would, you know, start paying extra attention to what's actually happening on the reviews front.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Inna, can you share how it is in Revolut?
So we have basically KPIs on the individual level. So we should assign on every specific agent, for example, as well as we have team level KPIs. So if we talk about individual level KPIs for agents, it's going to be CSAT, customer satisfaction rate. We calculate it as an average one for out of 5 stars. What was the average CSAT which you were receiving? Then we have productivity. So how many chats you were able to resolve within like 1 working day. And when we calculate productivity, we always deduct time which was done, for example, on meetings, trainings, and so on. So we want to see the pure data, which is like more reasonable and fair for the agents. Plus, we of course like have quality, which is even like for us the most important part. You can't like overachieve results with quality because we have the KPI, like you have to have 100% score rate. But if you fail with the quality, so if you've done like the check of your chats and you provided some incorrect answers, so you didn't follow the processes, like in this case, basically your quality score will just like lower down all the other ones. So that's why it's like for us the base which you need to have. If you look at the level of the team, so we have KPIs which are related to the customer satisfaction rate, but we calculate a little bit different. So we just recently had a review of different methodologies, and we are trying to identify what would be the best for us. So when we are looking just at the average, and let's say like we get to some kind of plateau when we were like just standing there, like we saw like where exactly we are, but it was not giving us any kind of action items. So then we try to do different ways. So we're trying to go for the NPS score, telling us like, okay, what is the number if you deduct like those guys who are detractors from promoters. We got to the number, but it wasn't also like very insightful because let's say when you have this number, you don't know what exactly is happening, how much you have negative reviews, how much like neutral and so on. So just like the number, you can see the trends, but again, you cannot action on that. So we ended up looking at the numbers of how many promoters we have. So for us, promoters are people who are scoring us like 5 stars. And what is the percentage of customers are scoring us like negative way, so it's like 1 or 2 stars. And then our goal is basically to increase the percentage from promoters and decrease the percentage of detractors. And when we got this split, this is actually when we realized, okay, our main issue is not even like so much with detractors, because customers like pretty rarely rate us like negatively. Most of the customers are in this neutral state. And that gives like us more actionable suggestions what exactly we can do, how we can deliver additional satisfaction to the users, versus in the past, we were trying to focus on those kind of 1-star tickets because we believe that those were the main drivers. So like one is this customer satisfaction rate. The other one is like queue waiting time. So if you look like first response time, as like other people call it, again, like it's only on the level of the team. We don't assign it to the level of agents. And we also have the cost per ticket. So we also calculate how efficient we are and how much, let's say, cost we're driving to the company. So our goal is to decrease the cost per ticket on like consistent basis. There are many other metrics which you're measuring. So it's going to be also like, for example, like cost per serving like 1 million users, the drop rate, the total resolution time, etc., but those are not considered as KPIs. Those are just like additional metrics which we always look into.
Yeah, and do you look at app rating, like if you were talking about?
So we look at it as a metric, but we don't put it as KPI because it's important that the KPI is actually assigned to people who can impact that KPI. If you look at the app metric, you don't quite know who's the owner, right? Because people can be rating the product itself. Then it's going to be the product teams. People more like in our case, we have many product teams who care only about some specific parts. So you can never assign to one product team. You need to go like very granular. Or people can be rating the procedures. Or for example, like we had it on the customers who were rating us negatively with the comment, my friends advised me to use you, but you're not available in my country, so I hate you. Which is like, well, I guess like you wanted to use us. So you're rating us negatively just because like you're still waiting for us to come to your market. So the reason like why we don't assign it as KPI is just because you cannot find the actual owner, but we still look at it and act on it.
Thank you. Vera, do you have anything to add to the?
Right. Yeah. Well, actually, I wanted to agree with you that, well, in terms of rating, and be it an app rating or just reviews rating, there are many sides that impact that. And now it's important for customer support teams to track that, to understand what's happening here and there. It's not like the KPI, but more something we see that they tend to report on, right? And as far as KPIs, well, it gets a little bit more complicated, I think, for mobile apps. That's, well, just mobile only in case it just because when you reply to a review, you don't really have any contact information to send that, NPS, for example, review, because it's just one window you can hope for. So what we see from the platforms, what, for example, Google recommends, because, well, they introduce this metrics, is they track as a XAT, they track updated with replies. So they track all the reviews that were updated after the reply from the customer support team, and they see whether the rating has been changed, right? And it was changed positively or negatively, and this is what we track in our system. And I think that now it's not like a rating dynamics, but this is as close as it can get to customer satisfaction rate within, a mobile world, because in mobile world, for some reason, customers are really that much isolated, right, from their customer support team. So we recommend tracking that, and we see that, well, this is important. And I see from the poll as well that, well, response time is really important, and we know that, I think, for any experience, because actually especially if this is a serious issue, right? So we recommend, and we see that many companies track average response time or first response time. But again, this gets a little bit tricky. I think first response time is a little bit more important because, well, with this updating here and there, because this is not a synchronized, communications, it's like this one window, they update, you update. And if we talk, for example, about App Store, there'll be hours for validating your reply by App Store itself, which kind of ruins the idea a little bit. And I'd say my high recommendation is, well, if you go with this KPI, not to compare your email, replies and average response time with your mobile, and this is like a bit different thing. And I think here dynamics is much more important than the number itself. So it would be like hours for sure because of this validation time, right? But what you want to track and what we introduce here, like building this agent performance stats, is like you want to track, for example, this week is this time, is it bigger, smaller than the previous week? And this here you can go with, again, I think this is a good idea to track it by team rather than by an agent. I think this is wise decision because you don't really want everyone to fight for this KPI. You just want them to, as a team, to reply quicker, right? Because you want still to keep the quality high, right? And as far as personal KPIs, we see companies set and we facilitate it, right? So the actually like this, I think, amount of reviews replied, amount of reviews tagged, and we feel like this is something like really simple but pretty efficient, because at some point you know what the benchmark for your company is, and you know that, well, actually we expect like 20 reviews to be answered per day or 10 reviews to be answered per day, and this is what you can actually expect from a customer, from an agent. And this is like, then you can push benchmark. For example, you introduce automation, now you expect this amount to be covered by, and this way how it can work. But so my suggestion here is to start from simple things like average reply time and its dynamics, which is much more important than the number itself, to go with amount of reviews replied, amount of reviews tagged if you do tagging, right? And to track this as a XAT, because this is like important. XAT is actually the very metric that tells you, well, whether you're doing well or not, right? So to track the updated reviews after the reply and say whether they change to positive or negative, right? So yeah, so I'd say that this is it. So basically, it's like all the replies you can count as a number of cases resolved, and then it's XAT, and that is time. And I think, yeah, this would work.
Yeah, so go from like simple things and then complicated, and then go by
Right.
user. Okay, there is a last question from my side here, and then I see that actually we're covering like some of the questions that guys ask here in the chat. I know that there are, like, from the customer support point of view, there are sometimes, and we already mentioned that a bit, sometimes you have like a very high load and workload, and then it may happen after a new release, or when their lockdown happened, or if it's a seasonal thing. And I know that you recently launched in the US. Can you share how it went, if you have changed the strategy? You also mentioned a bit, talked a bit about it, but if you can kind of give us more details about that.
Well, basically, yeah, like we always, as I already mentioned, we always get ready for any kind of launches because our main goal is like to make sure that our agents don't focus on launch. So they focus, they notice it because they go through the training process, but they don't notice it from the workload. So that part like is the most beneficial, because instead of fixing the problem, you want to avoid it in initial place. But in case we are having the spike, well, first of all, like if when we're making any kind of public launches, and we know that it can be potential impacting like a big amount of users with potential some issues, we always launch product with smaller phases. So we launched, for example, for like 1,000 users, 10,000 users. So this way, after the initial batch of customers receive the update of the product, we know if there's any kind of negative reaction, if it's driving any contact rate. So we immediately contact the marketing team, the product team, giving them the feedback. They adjust the strategy, they adjust the product, they adjust the communication, and then we go like slowly. So that's like one of the approach how we handle it. But most of the times, like it's pretty normal. The outages is definitely an issue when you have out of nowhere spike, and this is not something like which you can poorly control, because it happens everywhere, and sometimes it can even happen not with you but with your partner. So this is where we use the approach that our agents, again, like they should not feel it that much. So we initiate the banner before the chat application. So the customers, when they go to chat, initially they see the specific information about what exactly is happening. So we, in some way, informing the users that we are working on it, so there's no need to contact us individually. When they contact us individually, we activate the special like routing. So we try to isolate all those customers coming with exactly this outage problem to a dedicated queue, where our agents are not actually working. And in that queue, we send all the customers like mass messages from our side, because basically there's not much value which agent can add. They can just like tell you like, sorry, like we have an outage, right? So there's like no new information which agents can provide. So we provide this information for with like our Rita, our chatbot. And if customer later on replies on this message, they're saying like, oh, actually, maybe I was asking something else, or maybe I need a little bit more information, then only such cases are being treated by our agents. So our main goal was to make sure that this kind of spike volumes, they're handled not by agents, but they're handled by our team leads. So we have 24/7 team leads monitoring the queue on the shift. So this is a shift when just like all 8 hours, you're dedicated just to monitoring the volumes, the operations, and those are the people who are trained to immediately react on any kind of outages. So this is how it works for us.
Cool. Anton, can you share your experience as well, please?
Yeah, so for us, when it comes to just, app updates, not much changes. Of course, well, we know in advance that the app update comes, and the team is kind of there on the look for any spikes in ticket volumes. But otherwise, just business as usual. And well, never update on Friday. So that's, of course, one thing, late in the evening as well. So we make sure that, product teams also understand that. When it comes to like more critical things like outages, we have like one person every team on every week on rotation on alert. So, similarly to like backend reliability team having a person basically available 24/7 for a week, we have a support person for that. And basically, whenever there's something wrong with the servers or whatever, so something that affects users in a critical way, that person would be informed by the either by the rest of the support team, by the agents who were online. But if, let's say, nobody was online, and it was just backend reliability who noticed the issue, then they would inform that person. And we have like basically like a playbook, so just step-by-step things what you need to do in case of an downtime, which is, I think it's a really important thing to have because, well, you know, everybody gets a bit stressed. It's easy to forget something. So just having this step-by-step guide is really important. And basically what we do, like creating problem, put in all the incidents related to that problem, kind of like in one ticket queue, then giving periodic updates to the users there, informing users on social media, informing users, like putting banners on the support website, things like that. And then once the issue is resolved, of course, informing everybody, and then also go into the app stores and replying to the app reviews about that downtime. So yeah, that's how we do it.
I really like what Anton mentioned about the playbook, because indeed, under stressful situations, sometimes some people may forget to do like a very important step. That's a very good notice. I can give you a tip from our side. What we did is we noticed that for some kind of incidents, we had people who were like not always acting according to just like our playbook, because like we have the information on the our knowledge base, what exactly we need to do. But when people were in the middle of the incident, they were not always having time to go and read through this page. So what we're doing right now is whenever we initiate, like we have any kind of incidents, the technical support team initiate an automatic message, which is being sent to different channels on Slack. So we use Slack as our internal tool for communication. So this, like we already have predefined, let's say, instructions for different people and for different teams. So as soon as we initiate this incident, automatic message being sent to every single team which needs to do any kind of actions with exact this, instructions, like step 1, do here, do this action, click here, do this action on this page, do this action on this page. So this way, we guarantee that people don't forget and they don't need to try to understand, okay, is this scenario or another one, and so on. Plus, it gives a very clear visibility to the company what's happening. So we have one channel where we gather all such kind of incidents. So everyone from the product team, from the highest management, they can always see what was happening, what was going on. So like many people get engaged, like even if they don't need to. And that gives us like better prioritization level. So if we see something is happening like pretty often, so definitely more people care about just because it's very visible.
Okay, and yeah, I think that you can also some other people can jump in and help if, I don't know, you know, backend team, as Anton mentioned, or some devs or whatever, actually notice that there is an issue. Playbook is really good too. Thank you guys. Vera, you have anything to answer to add here?
Well, I just say that I agree with you guys. So I think the basic idea you need to give to customers is that you know about the issue and you're transparent, take the blame, say that, well, this is the status. So I think this is like the most important. So what your customers want eventually, of course, the proper working product. But since everybody is in this situation, I think the idea of creating that you're in this together and you know about the issue, this is the status, you're sorry that this is much more valuable than the working product itself, because, well, it's a chance for you to show the human side of your product and that you actually care about the product quality, that you can, you know, like anybody can fail. It's what matters most is that how you tackle it and how transparent you are about, well, this is actually the issue. And what we say is that if you're transparent, you say this is the status, what's happening, it would take a lot, like this amount of time to fix it, we'll get to you. So it kind of affects, is it your chance to affect loyalty of customers in a positive way, because, well, we're all human and we all want the product to work perfectly, and this is fine, and this is what you both want, and this is like some kind of area of empathy in which you can work together.
Yeah.
And also, like, if I can add on that, as for the communication, what I found very useful is when we not just communicate saying like, hey, we have an outage, or like this feature is not working, but also to give an action item to the customer. Because many times customers come in with a problem like, oh, I cannot do this action. You're saying, okay, it's not working. And you're like, okay, so what should I do now? I still need to do it. So whenever possible, we always give them the workaround, if there is any available. So we tell them while you're waiting for the fix, those are the options. Or we even like explicitly tell them like there's no actions needed from your side. As soon as they fix it, you're gonna have this feature available for you automatically. It's very common sense, right, for us, because like that's how it works. But for many customers, it's still a big question, because we saw customers coming to us saying like, oh, do I need to inform you that I explicitly have it? Like, do I need to inform you when you fix it so that you activate it back to me, this feature to be working, and things like that. So very useful is like make sure you put the action items what customers need to do, even if it's basic, like don't do anything. That's fine.
Right. Yeah, I agree. So it's good if you have workaround, you probably will remember to tell about this. But saying like nothing need to be done from your side is really comforting, and this is like I think really great input, because well, it kind of puts everything on hold for the customer and stops thinking about the issue, and then when it's ready, you come back and remind about it. So it's not like worrying, and I think this is important. Yeah, good piece of advice.
Yeah, I mean, from the customer point of view, I do agree that this is something that that you would like to hear from the support. So they work on the problem. You're happy once it's done. You're gonna get it, and it happens. I mean, it's a technology world, so you cannot do anything there. Thank you very much, guys. I will choose 2-3 questions from here from the chat. So the first one, Angela is asking, can you briefly describe the tech stack that the teams involved in the customer care are using? I heard Slack. If you can just quickly name the whatever makes your life easier.
Like I said, from our side, as for the customer support tools, we have them all developed internally. So we use our own product which we created for communicating with customers. So we speak with them over chat. The same product actually allows us to call the customers back. So we don't accept incoming calls, but we can call the customers. We also have our own product for the basically like CRM system. As for the company-wide products which you also use, it's like Slack for internal communication. It's definitely all the Google Suite solutions. And we also use solutions for McLaren. So it's going to be Jira for both project management as well as like technical issues, etc. We use Service Desk and Confluence. Those are the main tools for us.
Thanks. Anton?
Yeah, so for us, we are using Zendesk as a ticketing system. Then I already mentioned user voice for collecting feedback from the customers. Yeah, otherwise, I think mostly what Inna already mentioned, like standard tools like Slack, Jira, Confluence. Yeah.
Thank you.
And AppFollow, of course, for reviews tracking.
Right. So we see like there are like different group of our customers. There's a large amount of those who use AppFollow for replying reviews, tagging, using templates. They do everything in AppFollow. There's another group, and usually those are products that have mobile and web version or something else. So it's like omni-channel. So they use AppFollow integration with help systems like Zendesk, for example, right? So it's a Freshdesk, so they use this integration and reply from there, and use AppFollow more for analytics and maybe automation. So it's like split between the two systems, right? But also, so this is like in terms of replying to reviews, right? In terms of notifications and analytics, there are also those who go to AppFollow because they will offer a wide range of different, tools for analyzing efficiency, analyzing dynamics, analyzing like basically every step a customer support manager does. And we also offer a number of integrations for notifications, like I think Slack integration Anton mentioned. Also have Telegram integration, and they're different of those. You can adjust them by sending only specific reviews, or for example, a certain amount of stars for certain apps, or for example, another like recent addition is that you can filter by a specific tag assigned. So for example, if you have a team of customer support managers that in AppFollow tag the reviews, right? You can have it like if there's a specific tag like feature request. So you create a separate chat, and only those about feature requests are sent to this chat. So this also works very well, and I think facilitates the communication between teams. So it's not only for customer support, but also for the whole company to keep in touch. And I saw a question about how to give your customer support team, some voice to be, heard, and as a result, your customers to be heard, your users to be heard. And I think this type of, integrations, when you they see that you did this part of job, and as a result, your product team, for example, or your customer, like quality assurance team receives certain notifications, naturally builds this bridge, so that they're also aware that those reviews exist, and they get more empathy for those users and for those reviews.
Yeah, thank you. Another question is here from Katerina. She's asking, how do you usually handle complaints on issues with minor priority? For example, if customers are reporting minor bugs and then fixes are not planned in the nearest future.
Well, I can say in our site, we report every single bug. So even if it's extremely minor, only a small amount of users experiencing, let's say, on some specific module of the phone, very specific, very old software. So in this case, we still report it because it's still a bug, and technical, the product team has to know about it. It's just that we communicate to the user saying, okay, thank you very much for the reporting, but we don't give the ETAs that it's going to be fixed anytime soon. And then that report, let's say, gets lower priority, and we know that as soon as when they're going to have this time for smaller fixes, they will get to it. Or sometimes indeed it can be deprioritized. Let's say if it's a very old software, and we know that it's a very small amount of customers who are actually using it, and we are planning to stop providing services to it anyway. But from our side, we report every single case.
Thank you. Anton, how does it work for you?
Yeah, I would say it's pretty similar. So we try to report every single bug, and then let the product team decide what they actually want to fix and prioritize. We also interlink user reports with the Jira tickets, so it's easy, then to basically watch the Jira ticket. And once it's fixed, you can know right away which users have reported that bug, and you can let them know. And also, as Inna mentioned, we're pretty careful with giving any ETAs, even if the issue is, pretty big. So you don't want to disappoint the users. So yeah, we just usually say that, well, we will be given updates, but we can say for sure when the issue is going to be fixed.
Thank you. I think that we are. It's been an hour and 20 minutes, so thank you very much for that. I can already read a lot of feedback, and everyone is happy with all the insights that you share, guys. Thank you again. And if the audience has any questions that we haven't answered yet or anything, I hope that you don't mind if they reach out to you, or if you guys reach out to us, we will try to maybe
I can answer one question, because I saw it was repeated a few times related to data scientists, how data scientists can help in customer support. So basically, they can help a lot. That's an advanced level, let's say. We use our data scientists, first of all, for all the projections. So when we make the projections, how many customers we explain to write to us on an hourly basis in different languages from different plans, etc. So that helps us to staff us more efficiently, so that we are not overstaffed or understaffed in specific hours. Just to give you an overview, so we get on average around 8,000 to 10,000 contacts per day in one of the teams. So and we have hundreds of people which you need to schedule. So for example, if you would be having a team of 10, it's very easy to do the schedule. But if you're having hundreds of people and you need to adjust them because they have different skills, etc., this is where you need to have a very precise model. We should be telling you in advance what should be your decision making. Because human people, they will be able to do this job potentially, but with high level of mistakes, plus with a huge amount of time. That's one of the areas. The other area, for example, we do it for the quality check. So instead of just doing random sample of chats, which we're checking for the agents, we have a risk-based model where the model tries to identify what kind of chat is more likely to have a mistake or high risk to the company. So this way it's taking into account, for example, the rating of the customer, some keywords, the amount of messages which were inside the chat. So for example, if there are more messages than average, it means that most probably there was some kind of argument happening. It takes into account the category and so on and so on. So basically, our data science, we give some suggestions from our side, but our data scientists are also making the analysis of the previous set of data, trying to identify where exactly we can find this kind of correlation. The other area is like distribution of the volumes. So if you have like very high volumes coming in, you need to make a decision like who has to handle it, which chat has to be prioritized, which chat should be like deprioritized if you are not having enough capacity. So for that, we're also using the modeling where data scientists can give us the best answer, like how to redistribute the volumes so that they're the most optimized based on our capacity internally. So there are like many different ways, everything related to machine learning as well, like how the bot is replying to customers. We want even like to introduce it for the language like learning initiatives. For example, like we want to analyze the chats of agents to give personalized suggestions for agents on the areas where they need to invest more into learning, either the areas where they are like had like long resolution time for some kind of categories of cases, or actually the cases or topics which they were not handling for a long time. So in this case, if you're not handling something, like most probably your level of knowledge goes lower. So for example, this is like also one of the ways how you can use the data scientists, because they need to work a huge amount of data to make those suggestions for the people. Again, like it's not mandatory as an initial stage, but then when you scale, when you have like high operations, you will not be able to micromanage, let's say, every single agent, every single chat. So this is where you need to use like some scalable solutions.
Cool, thank you. And then there is, I think, the last question from Igor here to you, Inna, is which ticketing tool do you use?
So it's our internal build. So we built it internally, and we have a dedicated team which is fully supporting us there.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I think that there are quite a lot of questions, and I won't keep you here for any longer. I will make sure that, I will invite you to our next sessions. I hope that you will have time and can participate in it in next months. So thank you again very much for everyone who joined us here today. The recording will be available this week, and we will let you know when it is here. And Anton, Vera, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.